Good morning. We are going to be beginning Unit 5 today. And Unit 5 comprises of 5 indicators, and that is indicators 15 through 20, all right? And this unit is all about ratios, rates, unit rate, unit cost, conversions using ratios, okay? So we're talking about measurement units and everything over here. So you can look at the learning target for indicator 15. I can describe a relationship using ratios, okay? So what is a ratio? A ratio is nothing but a comparison of two quantities using division, okay? So I can write it, I can write a ratio in three different ways. Three different ways of writing a ratio. Okay, so let's say, I'm giving an example. Ratio is 4 feet over 2 feet. So actually it is 4 feet is to 2 feet. That is the ratio. Or if I'm comparing, all right, 3 cups is to 5 cups. So these are all comparisons. Or if I say, let's say in the classroom, normally in my honors class, I have 30 students per block. Okay, so in the classroom, I could say the ratio is 1 teacher is to 30 students. Okay, so I'm going to show you the three different ways to write this. So I would say 1 over 30, because remember we said right now we're writing a ratio of teacher to students. Teacher to students. Okay, so we said a ratio is a comparison of two quantities using division. And remember the fraction line, we have talked about this. This actually means division. So this is the first way to write it. Okay, another way to write a ratio is like this: 1 is to 30. All right, or you can write it as 1 to 30. So these three are the different ways where ratios are written out. Either you can write in the fraction form, because that fraction line means division. You're comparing two quantities using division. You can write it like this. No, this is not time over here. It's not 1:30 a.m. or 1:30 p.m. over here. This is actually a ratio. And we are comparing 1 teacher to 30 students. All right. And you can also write it at 1 to 30. Now, one thing you have to be very, very careful about. Whatever you see first in the question, that is the numerator, or that has to be written first. You can't change the order. So if I'm saying teacher to students, you have 1 teacher and you have 30 students. If I wrote the order wrong and I did 30 to 1, you'd be thinking, why do we need 30 teachers for 1 student? Okay, so that is why be very careful how you write the ratio. And sometimes in the questions, they'll give you, there were so many children with blue eyes and so many children with green eyes. What is the ratio of green to blue? So don't just straight up look at what number is written first. You've got to read the question. As I said, blue I had in the question first, green I had second, but the question asked you finally, what's the ratio of green to blue? So you would have to take the number of the green and put it over the blue. So be careful how you read the question. It has got to be in that same order, okay? So these are the 3 ways of writing a ratio. So let's say I have this. Okay, so I have these triangles over here, and it's asking me write a ratio of red to green triangles. So if it's saying ratio of red triangles to green triangles. All right, so what I will need to do here is, if I'm writing the ratio, I will count how many red triangles are here. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have 5 over 1, 2, 3, 3 green triangles. So I can write it as 5 over 3, or I can write it as 5 is to 3, or I can write it as 5 to 3. Okay, another very important thing to remember, since ratio is a comparison, if you get an improper fraction like this, we are not converting this to a mixed number. If you convert to a mixed number, what's left to compare? Nothing. So that is why the division line shows comparison in ratios. Do not change this to a mixed number. Okay, you will not write 1 2/3. Absolutely not. That would make it totally incorrect, because then what are you comparing? Nothing is left to compare. So in a ratio, even if the numerator is higher than the denominator, that is fine, because we are comparing the two. For example, 18 apples to 6 oranges. So you are not going to divide 18 by 6. Okay, because where is the comparison then? Because seeing how many apples are there, how many oranges are there, that's a comparison. So it has to be left like that. Okay, so ratio is a comparison, or of two different quantities using division. All right, so let's go and solve some problems. Oh, another thing, equivalent ratio. Equivalent ratio are basically two ratios that mean the same thing. Okay, that it is showing the same relationship. So for example, if I had this one, okay, it is describing the same relationship. So in order to show this, what I have to do is I have to multiply the numerator and the denominator by the same number. It could be any number, but whatever I multiply or divide the numerator by, I will have to use the same number to multiply or divide the denominator. Okay, so in this case, if I have 1/30th, if I want to get an equivalent ratio, let's say I choose 2. So then I would do times 2 times 2. Whatever I do to the numerator, same thing I do to the denominator. So I would get 2/60th. That is an equivalent ratio. I could do 1/30th times 10. Whatever I do here, same thing here. So I would have to do times 10 times 10. We can't have different numbers in numerator and denominator. Whatever you do to the numerator, same thing to the denominator. So this would give me 10 over 300. Okay, so this is what an equivalent ratio means. And the reason I said you can also do division, it's when it's not in the simplest form. Now I know 1:30 was in simplest form, but let's say I had 6/10 as my ratio. 6:10 as my ratio, and I was going to find equivalent ratios. So I could go one of two ways. I know both are even numbers, so I can divide by 2, all right? So I would have done divide by 2, and I would get 3:5, which is an equivalent ratio. Or I can take any number and multiply. Whatever I do to the numerator, I do the same thing to the denominator. 6 times 10 is 60, 10 times 10 is 100. So that is also an equivalent ratio to 6:10. 10. So that is why I was saying divide or multiply. If it's already in the simplest form, obviously you can't divide. So if you have to give two ratios that are equivalent to that number, then you would have to multiply. Okay? And please take the original ratio when you are multiplying. Okay, so if you're doing 1/5 times 2 times 2, or 1/5 times 4 times 4. So use that original ratio in order to find your equivalent ratios. Okay, so now let's go ahead and solve a couple of problems. And we are going to look at, let's say in middle school, the ratio of, well, let's just say this. Boys are 600 and they are, look at girls, I have 540 girls. Okay, so write the ratio of boys to girls. Okay, so first thing, please remember what I said. You've got to read what is the question asking. That has got to be the order. So if I'm saying boys to girls, you will write the number for boys first, and then girls will be written second. If it said girls to boys, it would be the other way around. Okay, so since we are saying ratio of boys to girls, I'm going to write it, boys are 600 boys. I have 540 girls. We are not going to leave it in this format. Ratios have got to be converted to simplest form. It's just like simplifying fractions. Okay, so let me show you the GCF method again of simplifying, which we have done in the past. So I can take boys, I can take girls. Let me find the greatest common factor. All right, and I know that these are both ending in a 0. So that means it's divisible by 10. So if I divide by 10, I get 60 and I get 54. Okay, now I know both are even numbers. So I can divide by 2 and I get 30 here. And I know that 2 times 2 is 4, and then I'll get one remainder. 7 times 2 is 14. So I get 30 over 27. Then I know that 2 plus 7, I'm thinking of the divisibility rules. Okay, so 2 plus 7 is 9, so that's divisible by 3. And I know that 3 plus 0 is 3, so that's also divisible by 3. Okay. So I'm going to go up more and I'm going to put 3 here, and I get 30, 10 times 3 is 30 and 9 times 3 is 27. Now there is nothing common over here besides 1. Okay, so basically I can do, this is what is being multiplied. 3 times 2 is 6, and 6 times 10 is going to be 60. So that is my greatest common factor. I'm going to divide both the numerator and denominator by this greatest common factor, and my simplest form is 10 boys to 9 girls. So that is the final answer of the ratio. So make sure that you put it in simplest form. Okay, now let's say you are supposed to write the ratio of girls to the total number of students at this school. Okay, so we're going to say girls to total number of students in the school. Okay? Another thing, guys, you might be asked if you already found the ratio of boys to girls, and then if the next question says what's the ratio of girls to boys, all you have to do is flip it. So don't do the whole thing again. And you know that now if it's saying girls first, you will have to write 540 divided by 600, because that is your comparison, the division sign, okay? And then you simplify. You already know that boys to girls in simplest form is 10 boys to 9 girls. So if it asks for girls to boys, all you do is flip it. You write the 9 girls over 10 boys. So think about it, okay? So now here's asking number of girls to the total number of students. To first you need to find, we know that girls is over here 540 and total students would be girls plus boys. Then I know how many total students there are. So girls are 540 plus the boys are 600. So when I add them together, these together give me 1,140 total. So that is my number of total students. So when I'm going to solve this, I'm going to go 540 girls divided by 1,140 total students. And then I am going to simplify again. Let's see if I can do it here. If I do 540 and I do this. Remember, they are both ending in a 0. So therefore, this is divisible by 10. And I get 54 over 114. Okay? Now I can see that, okay, these are both even numbers. So these are both divisible by 2. And I get 27 here. And I know 5 times 2 is 10. And then I have 1 left over. And I have 7 times 2 is 14. Now let's look at this. 2 plus 7 is equal to 9. And then if I do 5 plus 7, that gives me 12. So I know when I'm looking at this that these are both going to be divisible by 3. Okay, based on the divisibility rules. So I get 9 over here. And I'm going to get 1 times 3 is 3. 2 remainder and 27, so I get 9 over 19. So again, I am multiplying 3 times 2 is 6 times 10 is 60. So this is my greatest common factor. That means this is what I divided the numerator and denominator by. And then my simplest form over here gives me 9 girls to total of 19 total students. 19 total students. So remember to put it in the simplest form like this. Okay? Now, let's do a problem such as, okay. So let's say you are playing a checkers game. All right? You are playing a checkers game. And there are 16 pieces left. So in checkers game, you have 16 pieces left. Okay? The ratio of black to red is 3:5. This is the ratio. Then it's asking how many black pieces are left on the board. Okay, so this is very simple, guys. In situations like this, you know that 16 pieces is the total amount which is left. This is the total amount which is left at the end. So it's asking me how many, what did I say, black pieces? Hold on, I can't remember what I just asked you. How many black pieces are on the board? Yes, okay, so how many black pieces are on the board? So what I'm going to do over here is, first and foremost, since it's talking about 16 pieces are left, that's the total amount. So total amount of black and red, that's the first thing I will calculate in order to get a total amount over here. So 3 plus 5 is equal to 8 total amount. Okay, so the ratio of black to red is this much. So now what I'm going to go ahead and do over here is I am going to write, okay, so this is talking about black, 16 pieces left, which is the total amount. So black is 3. Total amount when I calculated by adding this in simplest form was 8. Okay, I'm going to try to make an equivalent ratio is equal to what if my total amount is 16? So now this becomes very simple to calculate because I know that 8 times 2 gives me 16. Whatever I do to the denominator, I have to do the same thing to the numerator. So 3 times 2 is 6. So my ratio is 6 black pieces to 16 total amount. As simple as that. So once again, first step when things like this are given and you're trying to find out that there's a certain amount of total amount already given, and then you have the the initial ratio in simplest form, and how would you calculate that is to add up the two simplest ratios. That will tell you the total amount of the simplest ratio in simplest form. So that becomes your denominator because total is always the denominator. And then since it's asking for how many are black, you would write that as the numerator. And then you just multiply like this to find it. Okay? Now, we know that we have 6 black over here. So how many red pieces will be there? So, please don't do the whole thing again that I'm doing, like, okay, 3 plus 5 is equal to 8. And then, you can, but I'm just saying there's an easier way to do that since you've already calculated how many black pieces are there. You could have done, of course, 5 over 8 because it's asking how many red pieces now is equal to how many over 16. Okay, and you can easily do 8 times 2 is 16, so 5 times 2 is 10. That means 10 red pieces. Or, the total amount of pieces is 16. Okay, and then you know that the black pieces are how many? 6. So if I do 16 minus 6, I have 10 red pieces. Okay, because obviously, like if I have a total amount, you already calculated one. When you subtract the other one, that tells you exactly how much of the other piece are left. Okay, let's try another problem like this before we end the lesson. Okay, so let's do, I'm going to remove this one. All right, let's say the question is, there are 48 students in a school play. 48 students in a school play. Okay? The ratio of boys to girls, ratio of boys to girls is 5 to 7. Okay, this is the ratio of boys to girls. How many boys are in the school play? So it's asking how many boys total are in the school play. So once again, we are going to do the same thing over here, and I'm going to look at, okay, total number of students is 48. Okay, so that means when I am making my equivalent ratio to calculate, this total amount is here. This is what we have, 48 students. Okay, now I'm trying to see what is the total amount of students here. So this is total students. And I'm trying to see what are the total students in simplest form. That means if I have boys to girls is 5 to 7, so I will have to take these two and add them, because 5 plus 7 will give me the total amount in simplest form. And 5 plus 7 is equal to 12. So this 12 is going to become this denominator. The total amount is always the denominator. Now it's asking what is the ratio of boys. Okay, in a school play, ratio of boys to girls is this much. So out of the total students, how many of them are boys? Okay, so we said boys is 5. So we're going to put that over here, 5 boys. To the simplest form of total students is going to give me how many total boys in the school play. As simple as that. So 12 times 4 is going to give me 48. Whatever I do to the denominator, I do the same thing to the numerator. And 5 times 4 gives me 20 boys. Okay, so this is how we calculate. We know the total amount of students is 48. Then, therefore, my number of boys in that school play would be 20. Okay, so if there are 20 boys, how many girls are there? Instead of doing again 7 over 12 is equal to, and then you do times 4, you get 28 over 48. I mean, you can, but you already know that you have 48 students. Okay, minus the boys, because we calculated that. Okay, so we are going to get 8 here. We have 2 here. So we are going to get 28 girls. If you were asked to calculate how many girls are there in the school play. And you know that 20 plus 28 gives me a total of 48 students. Okay, so basically this is what this lesson is about. You are comparing two numbers or two quantities using division. That's what ratio is. And and then you're finding out the missing values if need be. Remember to put all the ratios in simplest form. Okay, when you are given a certain amount, let's say 28 oranges to 24 mangoes. So you have to put it in the simplest form. All right. Okay, guys, have a wonderful day.